Housekeeper catches Nanny hurting Millionaire's daughter. What she did next left her father in tears. The cry echoed from the end of the long, silent hallway. Emily Carter froze, the cleaning cloth still on the polished wooden floor. She held her breath, listening. It wasn't an ordinary cry. It broke apart, choked and trembling, as if the child's entire world had collapsed at that very moment. Emily knew that voice. It was Lily. Her heart pounded as she hurried toward the room at the end of the hall. She had only been working in this mansion for a few months, but she was already familiar with the sound of Lily's laughter, her little footsteps running around. The girl was gentle, usually shy, but her eyes sparkled when she drew or listened to bedtime stories. Emily had never heard her cry like this. The door to Lily's room was slightly ajar. Emily reached for the handle, then hesitated. A woman's voice rang out, sharp and full of anger. "Stop crying! Don't be so weak! It was Monica Reyes, the nanny Rachel, Lily's mother, had insisted on hiring. Emily pushed the door open without knocking, her chest tightening. What she saw froze her blood. Monica was gripping Lily's tiny arm, her fingers pressing deep into the soft skin. The girl's face was flushed from crying, tears streaming down her cheeks, her small legs kicking helplessly. "Stop crying. You're a spoiled child, always demanding," Monica snarled, her other hand suddenly pinching Lily's arm hard. A scream tore from the little girl's throat. Emily's whole body trembled, a surge of fury igniting inside her. "Let her go right now." Monica spun around, her eyes blazing. "You have no right to order me around. This is none of your business." "This is my business!" Emily strode forward, covering the distance in 2 steps, to pull Lily behind her. She wrapped the trembling little body in her arms, placing herself like a shield between Lily and Monica. Lily clung tightly to Emily's legs, her whole body shaking, sobbing. Emily bent down, stroking the girl's back, whispering softly, "It's all right. I'm here now." Monica snatched her handbag from the bed, her voice hissing through clenched teeth. "You'll regret this. When Daniel comes home, he'll fire you immediately." Emily lifted her head, her gaze firm. "Go ahead. But you will never lay a hand on Lily again." Monica gripped the bag strap tightly, her face twisted with rage as she stormed out, slamming the door so hard the wooden frame rattled. Now only the sound of Lily's sobs filled the room. Emily knelt down. The little girl's eyes were red, swimming with tears. Her tiny hand still clutched Emily's, trembling. "She's gone. You're safe now," Emily whispered, though inside her a storm was raging. Emily tightened her arms around Lily, feeling the little body trembling. The girl sobbed, each sound cutting deep into Emily's heart. "Lily, let me take a look, okay? It won't hurt. I just want to make sure you're all right." She gently pulled back the child's sleeve. Emily's heart clenched. On Lily's arm were fresh reddish bruises, the marks of fingers pressed deep into her skin. But when she lifted the sleeve higher, she found older bruises, faded to a yellowish hue, proof that this hadn't happened just once. "Oh my God," Emily whispered, her hands trembling. "She said, if I tell, Mom will leave forever," Lily cried between sobs. Emily looked up, eyes wide. "Who said that?" "Miss Monica." Lily clutched Emily's dress tighter, her eyes full of fear. "She said, if I told Daddy, then Mommy would disappear. I would never see her again." Emily drew in a sharp breath, forcing back her fury. A grown woman had planted such a terrifying fear in the mind of a 5-year-old girl. "Listen to me, Lily. That's a lie. Your mother isn't going anywhere. She only said that to keep you quiet. But you don't have to be silent anymore. I won't let anyone hurt you again." Lily gave a tiny nod, but her small shoulders remained hunched in fear. Emily pulled out her phone, inhaled deeply, and began photographing each wound. She carefully lifted Lily's sleeve, held up her tiny arm, documenting every bruise, every silent mark that told the truth. "Does it hurt, sweetheart?" Lily shook her head slightly. "Just scared." "Don't be scared. I need to keep record of what happened so no one can deny it." When she finished, Emily quickly dialed Daniel Morgan, Lily's father. The call rang, once, twice. No answer. She tried again, straight to voicemail. Emily bit her lip, her fingers trembling as she typed, "Mr. Morgan, this is urgent. It's about Lily. Please come home right away." The message was read, but no reply came. Clenching her jaw, Emily sent all the photos. One by one, each bruise, each piece of silent evidence. Just 3 seconds later, her phone rang. Daniel's voice burst out, panicked and shaking. "What happened to my daughter?" Emily held Lily close and answered softly but firmly, "She's safe now. She's with me. But I saw Monica hurt her with my own eyes, and I have proof." On the other end, silence stretched, then the loud scrape of a chair being shoved back echoed. Daniel's voice cracked as he whispered, "I'm on my way. Don't leave her side. Please, don't leave her." Emily looked down to see Lily still clutching her hand tightly. She knew from this moment on, nothing would ever be the same again. The black car sped down the boulevard, the red lights flashing in the distance, but Daniel Morgan barely saw them. The phone still burned in his hand, the images he had just received flooding his mind, the bruises on Lily's tiny arm, the angry red fingerprints etched into his daughter's skin. Daniel's chest tightened. He had let this happen under his own roof. He remembered the past few months. Lily had changed. She used to be a radiant little angel, drawing flowers, sketching starry skies, always running to hug him when he came home from work. But after the divorce, she had withdrawn. She cried at night, wet the bed again, flinched when Monica came near. Daniel hadn't seen the truth. He had told himself, "It's just the consequence of the divorce. She'll be fine." But now he knew. It wasn't the divorce, it wasn't sensitivity. His daughter had been hurt, and he, the one who was supposed to protect her, had been blind. Daniel slammed his fist against the steering wheel, his voice breaking. He remembered his last argument with Rachel, his ex-wife. When they divorced, she had insisted on choosing who would care for Lily at his house. Daniel had agreed, thinking at least Rachel wanted the best for their daughter, and Rachel had chosen Monica, a distant relative known as strict but effective. Naively, Daniel had believed it. He had thought, maybe Lily needs discipline, maybe Rachel is right. Now, staring at the photos on his phone, Daniel felt as though a knife had been driven straight into him. He had allowed an abuser to walk right into his daughter's life. He gritted his teeth and pressed harder on the gas, running the second yellow light. Nothing else mattered anymore, not work, not million-dollar contracts. Only one thing remained: to get home, to hold his daughter, and to never let anyone hurt her again. While waiting for Daniel to return, Emily sat beside Lily, her heart still heavy. She looked at the girl's tear-streaked face, and memories from her own past suddenly came rushing back, vivid as if it had been only yesterday. Emily, too, had once been a trembling child in the corner of the house, listening to her mother cry beneath her father's cruel blows. She had only been 8 years old then. On rainy nights, arguments echoed through their small home. Emily would hold her little sister in her arms, covering her ears, trying to keep her from hearing the sound of breaking objects, of their mother's pleading. Once, a neighbor looked through the window and saw everything. But instead of helping, she pulled the curtain shut. That image haunted Emily for years. The adults had seen, yet no one intervened. No one stood up to protect her mother or the children. By the time she was 14, her mother had finally found the courage to leave that marriage. But the scars inside Emily never healed. From that moment on, she made a vow to herself. If one day I ever see someone hurt the way my mother was, or the way I was, I will never turn away. Emily's teenage years were filled with responsibility. She worked part-time washing dishes, cleaning, babysitting, anything that could help her mother and sister survive. Her mother, Linda, battled diabetes with expensive medication to pay for. Her younger sister, Sarah, carried the dream of going to college and becoming a nurse. Emily never had the chance to study higher. She chose housekeeping, nanny work, jobs that were stable enough to bring home wages to support her family. But more importantly, her past had taught her to notice what others often ignored: the fear in a child's eyes, the unusual silence, the way a small body flinched when someone entered the room. From the first day she set foot in Daniel Morgan's mansion, Emily had sensed something was wrong. Lily shrank away whenever Monica approached, withdrew when she heard her voice. Emily had seen those signs before, but without proof, all she could do was wait. Today, when she opened that door and witnessed it with her own eyes, Emily knew. She no longer had a choice. The price might be her job, her income, even the only stability her family had. But she would rather lose everything than let Lily live one more day in fear. The garage door swung open, and the luxury car sped inside. Daniel hadn't even turned off the engine before the side door slammed shut. He bolted up the stairs, his face carved in stone. In the living room, Emily still sat beside Lily. The little girl had stopped crying, though her eyes were swollen and red, her head resting on Emily's shoulder. When she saw her father, Lily froze. A flicker of fear flashed across her face, and it pierced straight through Daniel's heart. He dropped to his knees, arms open wide. "Lily, come to Daddy." The girl hesitated, her eyes darting to Emily. Only when Emily gave a small nod did Lily step forward, clutching her father tightly. Daniel wrapped his arms around her, his throat constricting as he felt her tiny body trembling. "Daddy's here now. No one will hurt you again." Daniel carried his little daughter into her room and laid her gently on the bed. In the soft yellow glow of the lamp, the bruises stood out starkly against her delicate pale skin. Some still raw and red, others faded into an old yellow, layered upon each other like knife cuts carved into his heart. With trembling hands, Daniel reached out to touch her lightly, afraid that even his own touch might cause her more pain. "My God, since when, my princess?" His voice was hoarse, choked with grief. Lily bit her lip, her eyes shimmering with tears. "Since Miss Monica came 3 months ago?" 3 months. An entire season had passed, and his daughter had endured this all alone. Daniel felt as if an invisible hand were crushing his chest. His voice trembled as tears welled in his eyes. "Why didn't you tell Daddy?" Lily hesitated, then whispered as though even the wind might overhear. She said, "If I told, Mommy would leave forever." The words struck like a hammer blow. Daniel felt his whole world collapse in an instant. He pulled his daughter into his arms, his tears falling onto her soft hair, each drop soaking into the burning regret consuming him. "How blind I've been, not to see. You had to carry this in silence." His broken voice cracked, more to himself than to her. He held her tighter, his heart shattering. "From now on, you can tell Daddy everything, anything. I promise, I will believe you. I will protect you with my very life. And remember, she will never come near you again. Never." Lily sobbed, burying her head into his shoulder. In her trembling cries, Daniel felt the ultimate agony of a father, torn between anguish for his fragile daughter and torment for failing to notice those silent tears for 3 endless months. He pressed a tender kiss to her hair and whispered, "Forgive me. From now on, no one will ever touch you again." As long as I draw breath, no one will ever hurt you again." At that moment, the front door opened. Rachel Morgan walked in, her high heels striking the wooden floor in a cold rhythm. Her face was perfectly made up, but her eyes were sharp as blades. "What is going on here? Why did I get a message saying Monica was fired?" Rachel's gaze swept toward Emily, her voice dripping with disdain. "You again? Who do you think you are to interfere in our family matters?" Emily rose to her feet, though her hands still rested protectively behind Lily. "I couldn't just stand by while she was being hurt." Rachel let out a bitter laugh. "Hurt? Children get bruises all the time. Are you trying to invent stories just to cling to Daniel's trust?" Daniel spun around, his voice tight with fury. "Enough, Rachel! I've seen the photos. I've heard it from our daughter herself." Rachel froze, then her eyes blazed with anger. "You mean to say I was wrong to let Monica discipline her? Lily is too weak, too spoiled. She needs strictness." Emily took a step forward, her voice firm. "No, she needs love, not abuse." Rachel glared at her as if ready to tear her apart. "You're just the help. Do you really think you know our child better than her own mother?" Daniel rose, shielding Emily and Lily. "If you were a mother, you'd protect her, but you handed her over to an abuser. You failed." The living room fell into heavy silence. Rachel inhaled sharply, struggling to steady herself. "You're the one destroying this family, Daniel. And you," her eyes drilled into Emily, "you'll pay for this." Emily said nothing. She only stood firm in front of Lily, her gaze calm but unyielding. Daniel's voice cut like steel. "If this family falls apart, it's because you chose your pride over our daughter. Get out of my house." Rachel stared at him, her face twisted with anger and hurt, but in the end she spun on her heel. The sound of her heels faded, and then the front door slammed shut. Daniel bent down, holding Lily closer, whispering, "I promise you'll never have to endure that again." Emily watched the scene, her heart surging with emotion. After Rachel left, the house sank into silence. Daniel sat down on the sofa, still holding Lily in his arms. Emily sat across from him, her hands clasped tightly together, her heart in turmoil. Daniel looked at his daughter, drowsy from exhaustion, then lifted his gaze, his voice hoarse. "We can't let this happen again. Rachel won't stop. She'll fight to take Lily back, and I can't let my daughter fall into her hands ever again." Emily gave a small nod, but her heart clenched. She knew that meant a brutal legal battle. The next morning, Daniel arranged a meeting with Michael Lawson, one of the best family lawyers in the city. His office was housed in a sleek glass building in Manhattan. When the three of them walked in, Daniel, Lily, and Emily, Michael was already waiting. He opened the file Daniel had sent the night before. The photos appeared clearly on the large screen in the conference room. Michael examined them carefully, his expression stern. "This is strong evidence," he said firmly. "But we'll need more. Medical reports, psychological evaluations, and above all, an eyewitness." "Emily, that's you." Emily blinked, her heart racing. I have to testify in court?" Michael nodded. "No one else saw it directly. Without your testimony, this case is just one parent's word against the others. You could be the key." Emily sat in silence, her hands icy cold. She thought of her mother who needed medication, her sister waiting for tuition money. Rachel would surely seek revenge by ruining her reputation, perhaps even taking away other job opportunities. Daniel placed his hand firmly on the table, his voice resolute. "Emily, I know you're scared, but I promise you won't be alone. You stood up to protect Lily, and now I will stand up to protect you." Emily lifted her eyes and met Daniel's gaze, steadfast, unwavering. Part of her wanted to believe him, but fear still coiled around her. "What if I lose everything?" Daniel's reply was blunt. I'll take care of your mother and sister, I guarantee it. The only thing you could truly lose is the chance for Lily to be safe." The words cut straight through her heart. Emily remembered her childhood, the neighbor silently pulling the curtain shut, leaving her and her mother alone in the dark. She had sworn never to do the same. Taking a deep breath, Emily nodded. "I'll testify." Michael gave a faint smile, quickly jotting notes. "Good. We'll file for temporary custody immediately, then prepare for the main hearing. Daniel, you must take Lily to a doctor for an official report. Emily, I'll need you to write down everything you witnessed, every detail, every word spoken." They spent hours in discussion, Michael even rehearsing scenarios of how Rachel might retaliate. "She'll go after Emily's credibility. She'll say you fabricated this for financial gain. Remember, only the truth will be the strongest weapon." Leaving the law office, Daniel drove Emily and Lily home. In the car, Lily had fallen asleep, her head resting on Emily's shoulder. Daniel glanced at the rearview mirror, his voice low and steady. "We're about to step into a tough battle, but I swear this time we'll win." Emily looked down at Lily, then whispered softly, "As long as she's safe, it will be worth it." In the tense days leading up to the trial, Lily hardly left Emily's side for even a moment. The bruises on her skin had begun to fade, but in her eyes lingered a quiet, unshakable fear. Many nights, Lily would jolt awake from nightmares, bursting into tears in the darkness. Then one evening, Emily sat by her bed and softly began to read a story. Her warm voice, her gentle hand stroking Lily's hair, slowly eased the child's tension. Lily closed her eyes, her breathing grew steady, and at last she drifted into a deep sleep. And, strangely enough, that night she slept soundly until morning, without sobs or startled cries. The next morning, Daniel stood silently at the doorway, his eyes glistening as he watched his little girl resting peacefully after so many haunted nights. He turned to Emily, his voice breaking but filled with sincerity. "Because of you, for the first time, she truly slept in peace. Thank you, from the bottom of my heart." The first court hearing had ended, but its aftershocks rippled across the city. 3 days later, Monica was summoned to the police station. In the interrogation room, she sat hunched, wringing her hands. Across from her sat a female investigator, eyes cold and sharp as ice. "Monica Reyes, do you admit to using physical force against Lily Morgan?" Monica shook her head violently, sweat trickling down her forehead. No, it wasn't abuse. I only wanted to discipline her. She was too spoiled, too weak." The investigator laid a stack of photographs on the table. Images of Lily's bruises, the angry red marks left by fingers, undeniable evidence. Her voice grew firm. "This is not discipline. This is a crime. You will be charged with child abuse." Monica collapsed into her chair, her face drained of color. She muttered under her breath, "I only did what I was taught." But for the first time, true fear flickered in her eyes. Meanwhile, Rachel was facing her own reckoning. News of the case had spread through New York's elite circles. The photos of Lily's injuries circulated online, together with the fact that Rachel herself had chosen Monica as guardian. Friends turned their backs on her. At the club she once entered with pride, whispers and cold stares followed her every step. A former close friend said to her bluntly, "Rachel, you had everything, but you failed at the one thing that mattered most, being a mother." Those words cut deeper than any official accusation. Worse still, the court's temporary ruling stripped Rachel of control. From that point on, every visit with Lily had to be supervised by a social worker. At their first meeting, Lily sat quietly, withdrawn, no longer running into her mother's arms. Rachel tried to talk to her, but the little girl answered briefly, her eyes wandering elsewhere. And when the visit ended, Lily ran straight back into Daniel's arms without looking back once. In that moment, Rachel felt something more painful than the court's judgment. The chasm between her and her daughter had grown unbridgeable. Back in her luxurious yet empty apartment, Rachel sat alone, staring into a glass of wine. The life she once believed flawless was now crumbling piece by piece, and for the very first time she understood. It was her own pride and selfishness that had led her into this abyss. In the days following the court hearing, the atmosphere in Daniel's apartment shifted completely. The heavy tension was gone, replaced by a strange warmth, as if sunlight had finally broken through after months of darkness. At first, Lily remained cautious, flinching at footsteps or the sound of a door closing. But little by little, thanks to Daniel's patience and Emily's gentleness, she began to open her heart again. One afternoon, while Emily was folding laundry, Lily shyly approached with a box of crayons. "Miss Emily, will you draw with me?" Emily was briefly surprised, then smiled. "Of course." They spread paper on the living room floor. Lily drew a house, beside it a tall man, a woman with long hair, and a little girl in the middle, holding both their hands. Daniel walked by and froze when he saw the drawing. Sitting down, his voice caught as he asked, "And who's this?" "Daddy, me, and Miss Emily," Lily replied, her eyes sparkling with hope. Daniel's heart tightened. He glanced at Emily, whose eyes were glistening as well. Neither spoke further, but the truth was written clearly in the child's innocent sketch. At night, instead of crying in her sleep, Lily began to rest peacefully. Sometimes she asked Emily to read her a bedtime story. That gentle voice lulled her into dreams, something Daniel once feared would never return. One morning, Daniel found his daughter in the kitchen with Emily, the two of them giggling as they flipped pancakes. The sound made him pause in the doorway. How long had it been since laughter had filled this home? He knew both he and his daughter owed Emily something beyond words. But above all, he felt something undeniable. They were slowly becoming a family, even if no one dared say it yet. In the days following the court hearing, the atmosphere in Daniel's apartment shifted completely. The heavy tension was gone, replaced by a strange warmth, as if sunlight had finally broken through after months of darkness. At first, Lily remained cautious, flinching at footsteps or the sound of a door closing. But little by little, thanks to Daniel's patience and Emily's gentleness, she began to open her heart again. One afternoon, while Emily was folding laundry, Lily shyly approached with a box of crayons. "Miss Emily, will you draw with me?" Emily was briefly surprised, then smiled. "Of course." They spread paper on the living room floor. Lily drew a house, beside it a tall man, a woman with long hair, and a little girl in the middle holding both their hands. Daniel walked by and froze when he saw the drawing. Sitting down, his voice caught as he asked, "And who's this?" "Daddy, me, and Miss Emily," Lily replied, her eyes sparkling with hope. Daniel's heart tightened. He glanced at Emily, whose eyes were glistening as well. Neither spoke further, but the truth was written clearly in the child's innocent sketch. At night, instead of crying in her sleep, Lily began to rest peacefully. Sometimes she asked Emily to read her a bedtime story. That gentle voice lulled her into dreams, something Daniel once feared would never return. One morning, Daniel found his daughter in the kitchen with Emily, the two of them giggling as they flipped pancakes. The sound made him pause in the doorway. How long had it been since laughter had filled this home? He knew both he and his daughter owed Emily something beyond words. But above all, he felt something undeniable. They were slowly becoming a family, even if no one dared say it yet. Life seemed to be settling into peace, but the shadows had not vanished. Rachel refused to accept defeat. With each supervised visit, her bitterness grew sharper. One evening, Daniel received an anonymous text. "Do you think you've won? I will take back what's mine. Lily belongs to me, not you." His grip on the phone tightened, his face hardening. Emily noticed and asked softly, "Was it Rachel again?" Daniel nodded, worry clouding his eyes. The next day, while Emily took Lily to the supermarket, she noticed a black car parked at a distance, seemingly following them. Her heart pounded, but she forced herself to stay calm so Lily wouldn't be frightened. Only when they returned home and the car disappeared did she allow herself to breathe again. When Daniel heard, his expression darkened. "She's crossing the line." He immediately called lawyer Michael. The attorney warned, "If Rachel continues like this, we can request a restraining order. But be prepared, she will fight even harder." The words weighed heavily on Daniel. He knew Rachel wasn't just angry, she was desperate, and desperation could turn a person dangerous. That night, as Emily tucked Lily into bed, the little girl whispered, "Mom said you want to steal Daddy away from her." Emily froze. Kneeling down, she held Lily's hands. "No, sweetheart, I'm not stealing anyone. I only want you to be safe and happy." Lily's eyes filled with tears, torn between fear and hope. Emily hugged her tightly, whispering, "You don't have to choose. You will always have Daddy, and I'll be here whenever you need me." Out in the living room, Daniel had heard everything. His chest tightened painfully. He knew Rachel was planting poisonous fears in their daughter's mind, and that hurt more than any courtroom battle. But he also knew one thing. This time, he would not let Rachel win. He would protect Lily, no matter the cost. Good news came on a Monday morning. Daniel's phone buzzed. It was his lawyer, Michael. The man's voice rang firm through the speaker. "Daniel, the court has just issued its ruling. You've been granted full custody of Lily. Rachel will only be allowed supervised visits." For a moment, Daniel stood frozen, then his hand clenched into a fist. Thank you, Michael." Without hesitation, he rushed to find Lily. The little girl was in the living room, bent over her drawing pad. When she heard the news, her eyes widened, then tears spilled down her cheeks. She threw herself into her father's arms, choking out, "I don't have to leave you anymore? I can stay here forever with you? And with Emily?" Daniel held her tightly, his voice rough. "That's right, Princess. From now on, you'll always be with me. And Emily will be here too if you want." "I want that. I want both of you with me always." Lily's face glowed with joy. In that instant, Daniel felt his heart break open, not just for the legal victory, but because his daughter finally felt safe. He went down to the kitchen where Emily was tidying up. "Emily," he called softly. She looked up, and when she heard the news, her eyes brimmed with tears. She threw her arms around him, whispering with a trembling voice, "Thank God, Lily is finally safe." Daniel hesitated for a second in her embrace, then held her tighter. In that moment, both of them realized they were no longer simply employer and employee. There was something deeper, stronger, binding them. The days that followed carried a new warmth into the apartment. Lily laughed more, plastering her drawings all over the refrigerator. One made Daniel stop in silence. 3 figures holding hands under a radiant sun. As his fingers brushed the small sheet of paper, an ache rose in his chest, an unspoken dream of a real family. One late evening, after Lily had gone to bed, Daniel found Emily in the living room folding laundry. He stopped, his heart pounding. "Emily," his voice was husky, "I can't keep this in anymore. I love you, not only for what you've done for Lily, but for who you are. I don't want you to just be an employee in this house. I want a new beginning with you." Emily froze, tears spilling from her eyes. I love you too, Daniel. I have for a long time." He stepped closer, brushing her cheek with his hand. And then they shared their first kiss. Gentle at first, then deep, erasing every sorrow, every tension they had carried. From that moment they were no longer master and servant, but two souls bound together. Beside them was Lily, the little girl who finally had a true home, a new family where love was the foundation and trust the unbreakable thread. A year passed. The house that was once cold and silent was now filled with laughter. Lily had grown, her long hair tied neatly down her back, her eyes shining as brightly as the sun. In the backyard, she ran joyfully among the flower pots, holding up her newest drawing. "Daddy, Emily, look at this." Daniel and Emily were sitting side by side on the steps. His arm rested gently around her shoulders, and both smiled as Lily came running over, proudly holding out the paper. On it was a picture of three people standing beneath a blue sky with a clumsy scrawl above. "My family." Daniel swallowed hard and pulled his daughter into his arms. Emily bent down to kiss Lily's hair softly. For all three of them, that drawing wasn't just a child's doodle, it was a declaration. They had found one another, and they had endured. 6 months earlier, when they were married, they had officially become husband and wife. The wedding was not lavish, only family and a few close friends, but it was overflowing with warmth. The image of Lily in her tiny white dress, carrying the wedding rings down the aisle, was forever etched in their hearts. That evening, after Lily had gone to bed, Daniel and Emily sat together in the garden. The night sky glittered with stars. Daniel held her hand, his voice deep and steady. "I once thought I had lost everything. But then you came, bringing light back into my life. You and Lily. You are the family I always dreamed of." Emily leaned her head against his shoulder, whispering softly, "I once thought I'd never truly have a home. But now I know. I've found it." They sat there for a long time, hand in hand, beneath the starry sky. And in the house behind them, Lily slept peacefully, her dreams filled only with light and laughter. A new chapter of life had begun. No more pain, only love, trust, and a home that would forever belong to them.